Well, hi, my name is David Daly, and I head up Portfolio Strategy here at Matthews Asia. Today, I hope to cover three topics in this very short presentation. First, a summary of our investment outlook going into 2022. Secondly, what are some of the risks to this investment outlook? And lastly, what are some investable themes that we like going into the medium term? What are specifics of our investment outlook today? Well, first, we expect economic growth in Asia to slow from today's year-over-year lofty levels. But don't worry, the market participants in general expect this slowdown. In addition, we expect corporate profit growth should slow as well. But profit growth is expected to normalize at around 10 to 15% growth rates for next year, which should bode well for 2022. Secondly, we also expect Chinese regulatory oversight to exist for the foreseeable future. However, we expect that the cadence and severity of these regulatory announcements probably has peaked. And at the same time, we expect regulatory transparency to improve and corporate compliance to actually increase. Therefore, we expect regulatory risks in China to subside in the coming year. Third, regional COVID distribution of vaccines is accelerating, especially in places like India and Japan, which should support economic reopening in the region. Next, we believe that most major emerging markets are ahead of the curve in terms of their normalizing monetary policy and raising rates. This should support equity valuations into next year as well. And speaking of equity valuations, emerging markets, Asia, and China today are trading at substantial discounts to their developed market peers, very close to 5-year lows in relative valuation. This leads me to believe that many of the significant risks have already been priced in largely to markets as of today. So to summarize, we believe there's more left to this reopening trade globally. And, cyclical recoveries tend to favor emerging markets in Asia. And as China regulatory headlines fade, we expect markets to react favorably into 2022. So what are the risks to our investment outlook? First, there seems to be little doubt that volatility within risk assets could increase. We are going from a long-term, low inflation, low interest rate, highly liquid environment globally to a liquidity environment that frankly could be less supportive going forward. Secondly, there's a risk that Asian GDP growth and earnings growth slow more than expectations, at the same time that inflation fears are increasing. Now, if this scenario is realized, this hints of stagflation, and stagflation is rarely positive for risk assets. So with those types of risks in mind, what do we like going into 2022? First, in terms of countries, if you believe in the reopening and cyclical recovery, broad emerging markets exposure tends to work fairly well, as does exposure in North Asia. Countries like Japan, Korea, Taiwan tend to do well as these countries benefit from rising exports and strong current accounts. In China, our portfolio managers favor companies who enjoy regulatory support while trying to underweight companies with regulatory headwinds. What are some examples of industries with companies with regulatory support? First, small caps. The recent regulatory crackdown on monopolies has increased support for competition, which directly favors capable, innovative small cap companies in China. This is a new phenomenon, but I personally believe that Chinese small caps, especially those with regulatory support, actually could benefit for several years to come. Secondly, healthcare is booming, not just biotech, but also device companies, service companies, pharmaceutical companies. While we expect regulations to control drug prices and cost of senior care, healthcare innovation is still very much supported by the government and very investable today. Companies that support government objectives for import independency in areas like semiconductors, factory automation, and renewable energy, anything related to climate change and decarbonization, electric cars, the related supply chain companies like solar power and equipment, all examples of tailwind industries. And if I had to point to one favorite investable theme for me in emerging markets in Asia for the next several years, it's to invest in companies connected to innovation, especially in China and North Asia. Now, I have to admit, innovation sounds like a cliche or passing fad, but in reality, innovative sectors like IT, healthcare, communication services have been some of the best performing and largest contributors to emerging market and Asia returns over the long term. So that concludes my comments for today. On behalf of Matthews Asia, I would like to thank each one of you who have entrusted your investments with us. We really do appreciate your confidence and partnership. With that, please stay healthy and have a great day.